It is extremely difficult for a country to achieve industrialization. Among the 233 countries and regions in the world today, how many countries and regions have truly achieved industrialization? According to data from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, as of 2024, there are only 7 countries in the world that have truly achieved industrialization. That is, the proportion of industry exceeds 60%. If the standard is relaxed to more than 50%, there are only about 20 countries. Among these countries, there are both old industrial powers such as the G7 and emerging industrial bodies such as China and India, and even special countries such as Saudi Arabia that were included in the G20 because of the oil industry. In 2024, Saudi Arabia's industry accounted for 58%, but its industrial system was highly dependent on crude oil extraction, and the low-end and medium-end manufacturing industries were almost blank. The core measure of industrialization is not scale, but structure. Some countries have a high proportion of industrial output value, but their industry is not strong, such as Saudi Arabia. Some countries have a high proportion of industrial output value and strong industry, but their industries are incomplete, such as Japan and Germany, and they all lack military-heavy industry. China is the only country in the world that has achieved a complete industrial system defined by the United Nations, covering 39 major categories, 191 medium categories, and 525 small categories. The completeness of the U.S. industrial chain is about 90%, but the low-end and medium-end industrial chains have been relocated. The completeness of Japan's industrial chain is about 85%, and it is limited in military-heavy industry, aerospace, etc. The completeness of Russia's industrial chain is about 80%, and there are shortcomings in the light industry and high-tech industrial chain. Russia's self-sufficiency rate of light industrial products is less than 40%. Steel is the skeleton of industrialization, and its production chain is more than 200 links long. Let's first compare the current status of the steel industry in China and the United States. In 2024, China's crude steel output will be 1.06 billion tons, accounting for 56% of the world. The United States will only have 79.5 million tons, and 60% of its production capacity depends on imported scrap steel. In 2018, the Trump administration imposed a 25% tariff on imported steel in an attempt to achieve a U.S. steel revival, but it exposed the deep crisis of industrial chain rupture. There are only 4 cold-rolled steel mills in the United States, which cannot meet the needs of the automotive industry. In 2025, Nippon Steel's acquisition of U.S. Steel encountered obstacles, which further highlighted the fragility of the foundation of the U.S. industry. Behind every seemingly simple industrial product, there is an industrialized 1,000-layer cake. Take racing bicycles as an example. The CRMO steel used in the frame needs to accurately control the carbon content to 0.22% to 0.28%. An error of more than 0.02% will cause stress concentration fracture. The speed gear processing must reach DIN 6-level precision, and the tooth surface roughness RA less than or equal to 0.8 μm, which is equivalent to stacking 2,000 atoms in 1 mm. The proportion of silicon dioxide added to high-end tires must be strictly controlled at 16.5% plus or minus 0.5% to balance wet grip and wear life. Behind this high-precision requirement is 17 technical steps from iron or beneficiation to CNC grinders. There are no more than 5 countries in the world that can independently complete the entire process of production, 4 fewer than the countries with nuclear weapons. The manufacturing of lighters is even more like a miniature industrial epic. A 2 mm diameter piezoelectric ceramic column needs to be sintered at 1200 degrees Celsius for 24 hours, and the 8-12 kV voltage deviation during polarization exceeds 5% and will fail. The flow control accuracy of the butane valve is 0.01 milliliters per second, which is equivalent to dividing 1 drop of water into 200 parts at a uniform speed. When the zinc alloy shell is die-cast, the temperature control of 380 degrees Celsius plus or minus 5 degrees Celsius and the coordination of 200 tons of pressure will result in a dimensional deviation of 0.03 millimeters. When the crisp click sound is heard, it is behind the 7-year formula research and development of the Malaysian Rubber Laboratory, the 0.001 millimeters processing accuracy of the Japanese Precision Mold Factory, and the coordination of 118 processes of Chinese supply chain companies. There are less than 10 countries in the world that can independently complete the production of the entire industrial chain. The industrialization of developing countries is often locked in the poverty trap, and it is difficult to achieve industrialization. Research by the United Nations Development Programme shows that it takes at least 20 years of continuous investment to establish a basic industrial system, accounting for no less than 5% of GDP. How did China, the world's largest developing country, achieve industrialization? From 1953 to 1978, China maintained an average annual proportion of industrial investment of more than 15% through the accumulation of supporting industry with agriculture, completed 156 Soviet aid projects and more than 4,000 supporting projects, and built an industrial skeleton of coal, electricity, metallurgy, and machinery. This strategy of infrastructure first, then manufacturing, enabled China to have the ability to undertake global industrial transfer at the beginning of reform and opening up in 1978. In the 1980s, the strategy adopted by China's automobile industry was market for technology, but it fell into a vicious cycle of introduction lag reintroduction. It was not until after 2000 that China began to establish an independent research and development system, and China's automobile industry achieved a leap from reverse imitation to forward development. In 2023, China surpassed Japan and became the world's largest automobile exporter for the first time. China may continue to maintain this world's first for a long time. For a country to achieve industrialization, the construction of the industrial chain ecology needs more time to settle. It took a full 100 years for the Ruhr region of Germany to build its first coking oven in 1851 and form an industrial cluster of coal, steel, machinery, and chemicals in 1950. It took 46 years for the Yangtze River Delta industrial belt of China to introduce its first injection molding machine in 1978 and form an industrial ecosystem with 95% of auto parts within a radius of 50 kilometers by 2024. The value of this ecosystem is highlighted in China's export control of gallium and germanium in 2023. 90% of the world's metallic gallium comes from byproducts of alumina production. China's 85 million tons of electrolytic aluminum production capacity supports an annual gallium production of 1,000 tons. American companies that try to build their own gallium production lines have found that the alumina roasting link alone requires the reconstruction of an electrolytic aluminum plant with an annual production capacity of 2 million tons, with an investment of more than $3 billion. Every country in the world faces various practical difficulties on its road to industrialization. Resource-based industrialized countries face the curse of the Dutch disease. Saudi Aramco's oil revenue will reach $320 billion in 2024, but it cannot cultivate a local manufacturing industry. Its self-sufficiency rate for auto parts is less than 5%, and 90% depends on imports. This single economic structure is vulnerable to oil price fluctuations. In 2020, the plunge in oil prices caused Saudi Arabia's industrial output to shrink by 12%. Exposing the deep crisis of resource dependence. Export-oriented industrialization has created miracles. South Korea launched its first 5-year plan in 1962, and through the government-led heavy industry movement, it achieved a leap from textiles to shipbuilding and automobiles within 20 years. When Hyundai Motor went into production in 1987, the South Korean government required that the localization rate of parts be no less than 60%. This protective policy, created the world's fifth largest automobile group today. But over-reliance on external markets also brings risks. The 2008 financial crisis caused South Korea's industrial output to plummet by 9.7%, forcing the South Korean government to adjust its policies and shift its focus to supporting scientific and technological innovation. Some developed countries have also paid a painful price in the process of deindustrialization. For example, the share of U.S. manufacturing has dropped from 28% in 1965 to 8.4% in 2024, causing structural unemployment for 40 million people in the Rust Belt. President Trump's manufacturing repatriation plan has also encountered practical bottlenecks. Rebuilding the steel industry requires 100,000 industrial workers, while the number of metallurgical students in U.S. community colleges has dropped by 73% in 10 years. Rebuilding the semiconductor industry chain requires an investment of $500 billion and faces a shortage of 12,000 chip engineers. Let's put aside ideology. China's industrialization has important reference value and Enlightenment significance for other countries in the world. The unique value of China's industrialization lies in creating a new paradigm of super-large-scale national industrialization. Accumulating construction capital through collective land ownership, attracting technology spillovers through gradual opening up, and cultivating industrial ecology through the national unified market has enabled China to complete the 200-year industrialization process of developed countries in 30 years. In 2024, China's industrial added value will account for 30.4% of the world's total, equivalent to the total of the United States, Germany, and Japan, and more than 40% of the output of 500 major industrial products will rank first in the world. Behind China's industrialization achievements is the continuous improvement of total factor productivity. From 1978 to 2024, China's total factor productivity increased by 3.8% annually, of which the contribution rate of technological progress increased from 20% to 60%. In the field of high-speed rail, the traction converter efficiency of the CR400 AFEMU reached 97.5%, 2 percentage points higher than that of Japan's Shinkansen. In the photovoltaic industry, the conversion efficiency of PERC batteries increased from 19.5% to 26.8%, driving the cost per kilowatt-hour down by 82%. For countries around the world, China's successful experience in industrialization provides new possibilities. Ethiopia has learned from China's industrial park model, increasing the proportion of manufacturing from 4% in 2010 to 18% in 2024. Vietnam has learned from China's chain investment promotion strategy and formed a mobile phone parts industry cluster in Haiphong City, increasing the localization rate of Samsung mobile phones in Vietnam from 30% in 2015 to 65%. These practices have proved that the industrialization path of each country is not unique and requires strategic determination and systematic thinking. Standing at the time node of the middle of the 21st century, global industrialization is undergoing a profound reconstruction. Developed countries are trying to rebuild the industrial chain through friendly shore outsourcing. Emerging economies are looking for breakthrough paths in technological blockades, and green transformation and digital revolution bring new variables. The essence of industrialization is the ability of human beings to deeply transform the material world. To achieve industrialization, we need persistent perseverance and high wisdom. We need vision to look up to the stars, and we need down-to-earth execution. When we marvel at the precision craftsmanship of smartphones, we should not forget the industrial accumulation behind each component. When we discuss trade wars and technology wars, we should understand the competitive nature of industrial civilization. This is a marathon without an end, testing the strategic endurance and innovative vitality of each country. Do you have anything to say about the industrialization of the country? Welcome to leave a message for discussion. Welcome to subscribe and share my channel, where I will share in-depth views with you every day. See you next time.